Hey everybody, I'm going to do a quick screencast on walking you through how to use the COVID-19 Simulator that you will find at covid19sim.org. This is the final piece of the project that is mandatory to stick into your final project. So here we go. This is my 889th take on trying to do this, so wish me luck. On the homepage, you'll find information about the simulator and also, and more importantly, the user guide. So if you forget or get confused about how to use any of what I'm going to walk you through really quickly, please know that this is here for your reference. On the homepage that you'll go to, the simulator, please read this introductory paragraph. It's super helpful in just kind of setting your brain up to know what you're getting into. And these are just examples of some graphs that were created by the COVID-19 simulator, although these are much fancier than the ones you're going to produce in terms of the amount of detail that they have on them. But nonetheless, you're going to be able to do some modeling. To start your modeling, you're going to go into the simulator using this big red button. And then on this page, you'll come up on the analytical tools page that gives you three different options that you can choose to do. You have to create a set of graphs for each one of these options. National level analysis and state level analysis will require that you use two different sets of strategies. I'll give you more detail about that in just a minute. The state-by-state comparison, you have to choose a minimum of 3 states. Vermont must be one of them. So you can click on the states that you're interested in. If I were doing this, I'd do, I don't know, Vermont, New York, and Ohio. Ohio is where I came from prior to moving to Vermont. So, but if you're not sure about the geography of a certain state that you're interested in looking at, you can certainly find it in alphabetical order on this drop-down menu here. I'm going to use the state level analysis to show you an example of how to use this modeling program. I use Ohio as my state. And coming down here, these are the different options for the strategies that you can choose, ranging from minimal restriction down to lockdown, getting from least restrictive to most restrictive. Those choices are going to be in these drop-down menus under the interventions. I'm going to choose for my first intervention, minimal restriction, and you get up to 16 weeks is what's represented in this bar graph over here. I'm going to have my minimal restriction, I'm just going to choose 3 weeks. You can choose any time length you want. And then I'm going to go to partial open, and we'll do the maximum is 8 weeks. And so you can see, and after that, it goes back to being minimal restriction. I'm going to add another strategy to compare, because like I said, in the national and for the state, you have to have at least 2 strategies. So to do that, you hit this add another strategy to compare button. And you can do more than 2 if you want to. I'm going to keep it to 2. I'm going to do my minimal restrictions. I'm going to change that. Like, what if we had minimal restrictions for 2 weeks and then we went to partially open for 50%? So those are my 2 different strategies I've chosen. I'm going to go to Analyze Strategies here, and then scrolling down, there are my graphs. And you can see strategy A is colored in gray, strategy B is in green, and the black dark line is what's been reported all along throughout this pandemic for that particular state or location that you've chosen. Super important that when you get the graphs that you want, you write down the strategies that you've chosen. Because when you go to save them using this download figures button, it downloads your graphs, but it does not download what your strategies are. It will simply say strategy A, strategy B, and reported. It doesn't tell you what the strategies are. So please, please, please remember to make a note of that. Notice in here, there's a little bit of wiggle room. There's some overlap of the gray. It's just these wide bands of color show you the margin of error that's possible. We're going to keep our y-x-axis scale in linear. I do want you to change this other one from flat to per 100,000. That will be important when you're comparing Vermont, because Vermont's population is so low. Vermont will kind of look like a very low straight line if you keep it as flat, because it scales it different. And so by putting it per 100,000 people, it gives it a little bit better visual representation. So for each of your graphs, once you've found the graphs that you want to, or the strategies that you wanted to compare, and it doing what you need it to do, change each of those to per 100,000 people. Scrolling down, you can see that there are a bunch of different graphs that get completed. You know, if your presentation is focusing on the number of ICU beds, definitely include that graph in your final project. But just think about, you don't have to use every graph that you create in your final project. Use the ones that matter, and make sure you reference them, and you make sure you reference the strategies that you're comparing. If you have any questions, let me know. Reach out. I am here to help. I hope you're